Hello everyone, this is Michael Virardi and I'm super excited to introduce our new series Zoom In with Virardi, which is a successor to the Ask Virardi show. And unlike the Ask Virardi show, which used to zoom in into individual and personal success, the Zoom In with Virardi show will zoom into company success stories and best practices from all over the world, because today, my dear friends, we are serving the most demanding, the most knowledgeable, and the most informed customer of all times. It is an effort to help you and the companies that you work for manage or lead to become ultra competitive. I'm super excited to welcome today the Human Resources Director of Pirelli, my personal friend Felice Valente. And just before I introduce him, I need to say that for those of you who might not know Pirelli, Pirelli is a multinational company which is based in Milan, Italy. It is on the stock exchange, on the Milan Stock Exchange since 1922. It is present in 160 countries all over the world. And Pirelli has been sponsoring sports competitions since 1907, and it is the exclusive supplier for the Formula One Championship. Last but not least, Pirelli has its famous Pirelli calendar featuring photographers from all over the world, famous photographers, and Felice will sign a copy of that calendar and send it to one lucky winner who will share our first ever Zoom In with Virardi episode. Coming now to Felice. Felice is accountable for setting talent management, people development, and sourcing strategy at a global level for Pirelli. He has 15 years experience within the human resources, covering different roles such as HR director and training and development. He started his career at the Fiat Group Iveco and then moved on to Royal Philips. And then just before starting in September 2014, at Pirelli, he has worked previously at the British American Tobacco in France. I consider Felice a very capable professional, a great friend whom I had the honor and the privilege to meet in Berlin, Germany during the 5th HR Minds, where we shared a stage together. With this, Felice Valente, I welcome you to the Zoom In with Virardi show.
Thank you very much, Michael, and hello, everybody. I'm really delighted to be here and to be the first, guinea pig for this series. And I hope I can contribute further to your success and to the success of Michael experiment. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to exchanging with you.
Felice, we couldn't have asked for a first best guest, and thank you very much for doing us the honor to be here. As we said earlier, dear Felice, you have an extensive experience working for huge multinational corporations. Please share with us one common denominator that all these multinationals have in common when it comes to having a unique culture that has managed to keep them operational for so many decades and so many generations.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, Michael. And I was, if I have to be honest and look through the entire spectrum of the companies I've been working through, one thing which I find similar to all of them is that those companies, so Fiat, Philips, British American Tobacco, and Pirelli, they have a long tradition. They have more than 100 years of operational. And they all stick strongly to their roots. They are really able to leverage on their pride and the pride of their people working with them. Now, you can imagine the Fiat Group and their historical heritage, always looking at the Italian Dolce Vita or the Italian Second World War Renaissance of Italy, and being able to carry on this through and launching the new 500 Fiat in US, able to catch up with the culture, with the interest of customers in US. You see Philips with a strong pride and root into the Dutch culture, and from a long tradition of pragmatism and business ability to find different opportunities and find different proposition, and exchanging completely the proposition of today compared to 100 years ago. British American Tobacco has been also always a company who leverage on their diversity, because it's a conglomerate of different acquisition. And Pirelli, with 140 years of histories, we have always been, a kind of ambassador of the Italian fashion and brand from Milan. So what I see through all those companies is the ability to to stick to their roots and at the same time to project themselves on the future. So they didn't have to reinvent themselves. They had to evolve, and they were able to project their past into the future. And I think this is a great asset today. Companies who are not doing like this, they hardly have success when it comes to change management.
Excellent. During our telephone conversation, Felice, you mentioned three factors: class, function, and origin. And you said that they are crucial to the cultural shift. What do you consider as a cultural shift? And what is it, of course, the three factors included, and why is it important in any corporation? Why are these important?
So what we learn in our journey after so many years in different organizations is that culture, it's a very complex concept, and when it comes to reality, it's a blended recipe of different ingredients, geography, functions and business, and at the same time class in terms of origin of people, where they come from. They all mix together and they all create a typical unique culture. There is one thing that I always say to colleagues when we are discussing around this topic, is that it doesn't exist a one-fits-all type of approach when it comes to culture. And a lot of boards, a lot of CEOs, they their own culture within the organization. But culture, it go across a matrix of different ingredients, as I said, and you always have to take in consideration that working in Germany is different than working in Italy is different than working in Cyprus or in other organization, because they also have their own geographical culture. And the same working in marketing or in HR and supply chain will follow different driver and also different school system, education system. And at the end of the day, if I grew up having the opportunity to do an MBA, is different than if I grew up do it by myself and creating my own career. All these things together makes a very complex cultural structure. Cultural shift doesn't mean that you have to be disruptive, and you cannot be such a disruptive when you want to make a change. You have to understand your culture. You have to understand the essence of your culture, because in the essence of your culture you find your strategy. And what I mean that is that so many companies nowadays, they do not have their strategy, or they struggle to set up their own strategy. And if you look at your roots, as I was mentioning before about those 4 companies where I've been working for, if you're able to assess your roots and assess your culture, then you can bring your culture in the future, and then you can set up your own strategy and evolve. There is an important point we discussed, if you remember last time, is the concept of the extra mile, the stretching mile of culture. I don't think and I don't believe that you can revert 100% a culture. Only the business can do it. I mean, if you collapse as an organization, and there are plenty of examples in the literacy, if you collapse in the organization, then you can revert 360 degrees your business. But normally, the evolution of an organization is moving the culture forward, being able to connect with the culture and stretch it. Then you're able to carry on your organization further. Sorry, I elaborated a little bit more. But
sorry, if I understood well, you say that the 1 mile stretch means that the shift of class, function, and origin should blend together in a global world, multicultural world, in order to get the best cultural shift. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. You have to keep in mind the complexity of your culture, of your organization. The wider, the more global is your organization, the more complex is your culture, and of course your tradition and your heritage. The extra mile means if you want to change your organization, you have to think about like a flow, like a river. You don't change the fact that the river is made by water, but you accompany and join the river through until the sea by being able to move it in the direction you want. So the culture, you cannot change the culture, but you can accompany and join the culture and make it evolving where you want to.
Excellent. How many people at Pirelli, Felice? How many
We have
employees?
roughly around 38,000 employees in 160 countries.
Unbelievable. And multicultural, of course, multicultural from all over the world.
We have
Okay.
22 factories in 16 countries, and we have a beautiful footprint for Mexico, Latam, Argentina, Brazil, Italy, and and they all feel like belonging to Pirelli family. So Mexicans with their Mexican flavor and Mexican culture belonging to the culture of Pirelli, and you already start to see that there are two ingredients, and then you have the manufacturing guys, and then you have the marketing guys, the more fancy guys, the more research and development lab guys. So you have a multitude of people. You have a very customized culture, and it's putting all those pieces of puzzle together make the picture of the Pirelli.
But I'm sure if I interview a Pirelli Mexican guy, he won't be moving his hands around, correct? It has to be an
Oh,
Italian
absolutely.
guy.
As the Italian guy, exactly. Yeah, and it's a critical, Michael. If I tell you and the audience, it's critical to understand it, because people who don't see that or overlook that, they run the risk of clashing with that culture. Majority, and because I'm also responsible for sourcing and recruitment, the majority of clash I see nowadays, especially when it comes to management, it's because of the cultural fit. Everybody's talking about the cultural fit. Cultural fit means exactly this: understanding that a company is like a country. If I come to Cyprus to work, I have to understand how it works in that area. I have to adapt and be flexible to adapt myself to that culture. But at the same time, I am paid, I'm rewarded if I'm able to move the culture forward towards the new strategy. So it's extremely important that every manager who are listening at this video understands that you cannot be a one-man show changing completely the culture. You have to be humble enough to listen, understand, and at the same time moving further an organization and finding the right tipping point for them.
What is a cultural risk? And what is also cultural diversity? You talked about it, but what is the cultural risk? Is everything that we mentioned earlier, or is something deeper than that?
It's deeper. It's a twofold issue. I mean, there are pros and cons, like everything. If you scale up something to its own excellence, I learned in life, then it becomes a strong ally for you, a strong friend, a strong support. But it could turn out to be your worst enemy. So what I'm saying with that, if you have a strong culture, and all the companies I've been working for, they were able to survive through different crises because they had strong culture, Fiat, BAT, Philips, and Pirelli. But at the same time, it might turn out to be a burden because you stick too much on the roots. And if you want, and today we work, that we live in a VUCA environment. The uncertainty, the volatility, the ambiguity makes ourselves to be, more. We have to be ready. We have to be ready to things which are changing sometimes dramatically. The fact, though, is that if you have a strong culture, it's a great thing. Looking at the past, but might not be the things will help you to go through the future. So when we talk about cultural risk, is that use it always with a kind. I'm always saying you have to be one eye which is looking at today and the other eye is looking at the future. It's a little bit of strabism, we call it. You need to have this kind of approach, because the risk in terms of culture is that you remain trapped with your own culture, and then changing a culture is tough. I was having some chat with people from other businesses like Microsoft, which actually is going through important changes. And shifting organization, more business model or culture, it can be. I mean, it's a beautiful to say on the paper, but it could be a bloodshed in terms of clashing, risking failure. So you have to create a culture which is flexible enough to looking at the past, looking at the present and the future, and absorbing the different changes.
Excellent reply. Felice, do you like football? Are you a football fan?
Oh, yeah, in Italy, it's very tough not to be not to be part of the football.
I love football as well. Which team do you support in Italy, if I may ask?
I am a good supporter of Juventus Turin.
Juventus Turin. It's the best team up to now. Can I ask you something? In football, they changed the manager and they believe that a new era will come through. In business, do you think there is a professional messiah for a company, one disruptive mind that can help the company, like Pirelli, for example, change course, become more competitive, even more a better cultural fit by one man? Can one man or can woman make a change in organizations as big or as small, as big as yours or as small as ours?
So, Michael, this is an interesting question. I think we all came through era where we really thought there was a messiah one-man show. We all thought that there is the big man or the big boss able to turn in around organization. I think personally that nowadays, and then I'll come back to the example of football, that nowadays organizations are extremely complex. Culture is permeating the entire structure. Global processes and global interconnection make it organization a very thick structure where it's very seldom, not to say rare, that you have someone which is really turning upside down. And this is happening also in football. You always search for someone who is fault or is to blame in terms of football. When the team is not doing well, it's always a matter of the trainer or the goalkeeper or the forward striker. But in the end of the day, when you see that, you learn more and more that football is not even anymore 11 players. It's 22 players. It's a 30 people squad. And then you put on top also the manager and everything. So an organization is becoming more compact. Like in the business, organizations are becoming more compact. Now, you can have good leaders, and you want to have good leaders within the organization, which are helping to move the organization forward. But one-man show, I don't think it works. And from the experience we see today, there are less and less one-man show. Because the one-man show, if they are good, really good, they surround themselves by leader, and then they put leader into the organization. I mean, the one single person can set some line, but I don't see existing the so-called messiah or so-called big boss like before.
So maybe your excellent reply goes hand in hand with my next question. So is the remedy to changing a company that is not doing well spending enough time understanding the company? And if a messiah comes in inverted commas, should he or she spend enough time to understand the company in order to speed up the processes and make it more successful?
Look, I saw experiment which ended up in success, and I saw experiment which ended up in failure. I don't want to mention the organization, but it happened that one CEO came and he wanted to bring a very strong disruptive approach, and he was actually blaming on everything people were doing before, meaning we have to change. The word he used was we have to change with the bad habits of the past. If you start to do like that, you start to challenge the passion and the commitment people put in the time, and then people will not follow, and then tell you also that the culture will not follow. Of course, you can always do whatever you want if you have your shareholder on the back and the investment ready to change an organization, hiring new people and changing. But when you enter into a new role as a big boss, you have to carefully understand the tradition and what you can bring forward of the past. An agile leader is the person who is able to pick up the good of the past and projecting into the future, including and adapting with the future. And when it happens, then you see flourishing change and turnover. But it's tough, Michael. A lot of people are failing at that because the ego of a leader sometimes goes overboard, and there is the perception that you can change everything. It does not. It's a community, and a community of professionals which is getting more and more professionalized. Like in football, you can take the best trainer ever and you put it to whatever team in the second division or third division of Italy or Cyprus. It's not himself which will change. He will have to surround himself of other leaders and understand the culture and moving forward. Then there is a chance for success.
Excellently answered. Last question. We have 1 minute to go. When I was interviewing before, just speaking about this interview, you said something to me that really resonated with me, but I want you to elaborate on it just a bit. You said that companies should make culture their strategy. Can you please elaborate on this one, Felice?
Yeah, it's it's a bit in the direction of what we mentioned before. Culture is getting is becoming more and more a stronger enabler of your organization. Setting strategy nowadays, it's not easy. Volatility, uncertainty, complex environment, businesses which pops up and ends in very few years. I mean, as an headhunter once told me, outside is very cold, meaning that the situation is getting tougher for a lot of organizations, even for famous ones, and culture remains one of your anchor, one of your enabler. If you have your culture well set, if you create a culture which is enabling the opportunity to failure and learn from failure, if you create a culture where people are well accepted and go for the extra mile, if everybody belongs, feel belonging to a family, it's a huge asset. So in the end of the day, if you are not able to find your own strategy because the complexity outside, culture can help you a lot. And therefore, I'm saying culture in the end is your strategy. Because if you're able to evolve your culture, you move your organization forward, and it can always be profitable and flourishing in the business.
Unbelievable. I love your answers. Let me recap just before I give you the final word. Today, we couldn't have had a better guest than Felice Valente, the International HR Director for Pirelli International. He told us that for companies to evolve, they have to have the ability to stick to their roots like Pirelli is doing, and also keep an eye into the future. He said that a company should be like a country that respects the class, the function, and the origin of all its citizens, irrespective of their roots. He also said that one strategy doesn't fit all. We need to be receptive. We need to understand that there has to be a cultural mix. Felice Valente said that leaders need to be humble and patient. There is no one messiah recipe to change a company. We should be like the river, like the water flowing into the river, into the lake to go into the river. We have to be patient and flexible and agile. He also said that it's not an 11-player team that will win a company or a team the championship, but it's a 22 men or women for that matter. So everyone should be included. No man is an island, no woman is an island. Number one is too small a number to achieve greatness. And last but not least, he said that culture is an anchor, culture is an enabler, culture is what makes you go that extra mile and differentiate yourself and your company. With that in mind, I want to thank Felice Valente for being an excellent guest on the first ever show of the Zoom In with Virardi. And the last word is yours, Felice.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I could not agree more than what you recap our chat. And I want to take the opportunity to be here and share with the manager. My only final thought final word for the audience is that when you enter an organization as a newcomer, spend enough time. Take always the typical 100 days or 3 months. Spend enough time to learn and listen and understand your culture, because you will have to fit and adapt and move the culture forward, keeping in mind always your target, where you want to go. But don't forget that an organization existed before you came, and will always exist after. So we'll be part of that journey, and the ability of you shaping the journey is the ability you have to understand the organization you got in. So my best wishes for all of the audience and success, and I hope we can meet each other somewhere in the professional network.
Thank you very much, Felice. You've been great. Dear friends and fans, we'll be back with another exciting episode at the end of February, the last day of February, after this is aired. Thank you very much, Felice. Thank you very much, Pirelli. It was an honor and a pleasure having you here. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.